Good morning, everyone. All right, we got, I know there's some folks that wasn't here last week for lesson 7, not lesson 6. Does anybody need a copy of it? Anybody else? It says exit. Lesson 6, but it's supposed to be lesson 7. It's doubt, disbelief, and distrust. All right. Well, we really got into a good discussion last Sunday with this about doubt, disbelief, and distrust, and really it came down to the idea that the problem with a calloused heart and with doubt, disbelief, distrust is our faith. And so our faith that is weak will cause us to doubt. It will cause us to have disbelief in what God has said, and even distrusting God or His Word, or even the minister who's preaching it. And I think this is where we ended last week. The absence of faith and the overtaking of fear and anxiety and gloom means, number one, man becomes the thinker and loses his trust in God. Think about that for a moment. When we don't have our faith where it needs to be, or we don't allow or grow our faith the way we need to, and we have fear and anxiety and gloom enter in our life because of our faith, that's when we become the thinker. Instead of trusting God, we lose our trust in God. We also lose our motivation to continue on being a Christian, or putting God first and doing things. So we lose our motivation. Think about that for a moment. Sometimes when we get up in the morning, I'm not motivated to do anything. Are y'all? There's sometimes I just cannot get motivated. You sit there and you say to yourself, oh, I need to get up and I need to do this or I need to do that, and you just don't have the motivation to do it. So what causes you to finally get up and get moving?
My voice.
Your voice. Coffee, yes. Yeah, 3 potful for me sometimes. Yes, I got to have 3 pots of coffee. Yeah, I'll drink a pot with Nancy in the morning. I'll drink more when she leaves, and then I'll drink some in the afternoon. So I guess it's about 3 pots I drink. I love my coffee. So yeah, we what else? What is it that gets us going? Maybe the threat. You know, maybe the threat of our spouse. But as a sinner, when we know that we are sinning, and we don't, and we allow our faith to falter, we lose the greatest help that we have to get out of sin, and that being God. When our faith becomes weak, we also lose a refuge. You know, there was a place in Scripture, and I think it's either in Psalms or Proverbs, that talks about the mother hen that protects her young. Have you ever seen a mother hen when she has her young chicks? What does she do? She squeals or does something, and they come running to her, and she puts her wings around the young. And if you get too close to her, then she's going to flog you. What I call, or what Daddy called flog, getting up there. And she's got some spurs on the back of those claws of hers, so it could hurt you. But She gives them refuge. Well, God gives us refuge. God gives us that refuge through the word that He's given us, through His commands that He's given us, and the instructions. And when our faith falters, when we begin to have doubt and disbelief and distrust, we've lost that refuge. We're turning away from the safety that God is offering us to something that is no longer safe anymore. And then at the very end, when we lose all these things, when we lose God because we become the thinker, when we lose our motivation to keep on keeping on, when we lose our help from getting out of sin, and we lose that refuge, finally there is no hope. We lose hope. And so it's so important that we keep our faith strong as Christians, and realize when there are things that happen, and we see our faith or we start to question our faith, or we start to have a little bit of doubt and disbelief, we need to immediately do the things that will help us increase our faith. You know, the disciples asked Jesus on one occasion, teach us to what? To pray. And God did, or Jesus did. Jesus taught them how to pray, or what to pray. And maybe we need to, when we see our faith faltering a little bit, we need to pray to God and say, God, increase our faith. Help us to increase our faith. Help us to see the things necessary. And the key to it is when you see it happening, stop it before it becomes a deep problem. All right? Number 3 on the introduction here, faith is essential to living the Christian life. Why do you think that is so important? Why is faith important in living the Christian life?
Can't please God without it.
You can't what?
Can't please God.
You can't please God without it. That is exactly right. Well, if we don't have faith, what happens when we lose our faith? We start to blame God for the problems that we face, right? We start to blame God for the sickness that comes in on us. We blame God for the situations that we are in. Because we've lost the faith, we want someone to blame. How many of you blame your children when you can't find something in your house that you know that they had? They put it somewhere. Oh, I see some smiles. How many? Oh, he's over here pointing to his wife.
Yes, I was going to say blame your wife.
You blame your wife. And let me tell you, I can't tell you how many times that my stuff has come up missing because someone, and I'm not saying who, Nancy Winters, took my stuff and moved it and never told me. And here I am, I'm seeking it. I know where I put it, and I'm trying to find it. Well, I don't know, maybe we're misplacing our trust, or and what I mean by that, we're putting our trust in the wrong thing. Let's look at a few verses here. Let's go over to the book of Psalm. Let's look at Psalm 27. Psalm 27. This is a Psalm of David. In Psalm 27, I wrote on top of right below the chapter, Psalm 27, I wrote God's antidote to fear, or God's remedy or medicine to fear. We're just going to go ahead. It's only 14 verses, so let's go on through this. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? And when the wicked came against me to eat up my flesh, my enemies and foes, they stumble and fell. Though an army may encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war may rise against me, in this I am confident. I put on the outskirts of these 3 verses the word strength. This is exactly what God does to you and I. He gives us strength. Now, the next section that we look at is verses 4 through 6, where I wrote down in these verses, God is my defense. You know, they say in football, a good offense is having a good defense. Well, in boxing, the boxer has a dominant hand and I'm not going to say less dominant, but a hand that's used more for defense. So, what is the dominant hand for? To attack. The right-handed person, if you're right-handed, that's the hand that you attack with. The left-handed fighter is the hand or the arm that is used to defend or to block. Even though the right hand is also, but majority of the time the left hand, and this is used to defense. Now, a person who is a left-handed fighter, he's called a southpaw. Is that what it is? Yeah. Because it's hard to defend against a left-handed, dominant, attacking fighter. I don't know. I'm not a boxer. That's just what I've heard. But anyway, God is our defense. Let's see what David wrote. One thing I have desired of the Lord, that I may seek, or that I will seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in His temple. For in time of trouble He shall what? Hide me in His pavilion. In the secret place of His tabernacle He shall hide me. He shall set me upon a high rock. And now my head shall be lifted above my enemies all around me. Therefore I will offer sacrifices of joy in His tabernacle. I will sing. Yes, I will sing praises to the Lord. In these verses we can see clearly that David is saying, God is my defense. He is there to protect me. He's going to help me. Now the next section of verses is 7 through 10. I wrote on the outskirts of these verses that God is our ear, or He hears our cries. Not only does God hear our cries, even before we bring them before Him, He sees our cries, don't He? Isn't that what we do for one another? We get to know one another so intimately and so well that when we see someone that's not acting like their self, the first thing that comes to our mind is, something's wrong. And rightly so. And so we usually go up to them and we say, are you okay? You just don't seem yourself. Now, those of you that have asked me if I'm okay, you don't seem like yourself, well, I'm not myself. So I'm okay, so don't have to keep coming up and asking me, are you okay? No, I'm crazy. All right? So, I'm okay. I'm just in my own little world. But there are times when we look at someone and we can say, hey, they're not right. They've got something bothering them. Now, I want to ask a question to you, and I want you to be honest. How many times has someone come up to you and said, hey, are you okay? Do you need anything? Do you need help? Or is something bothering you? And you say, no, I'm okay. I'm fine. But really, you're not. Really, you are upset. Really, you have something bothering you. And yet, when you are asked, what do? No, I'm fine. I'm good. Now, what have you just done?
Lied.
You just lied. and your family, your spiritual family, or even your physical family is concerned enough about you to say, hey, you're not acting yourself. Is everything okay? You don't need, if you don't want to share it, you don't have to share it, but you can just say, I've got some things on my mind, and, just keep me in your prayers. That's easy to do, isn't it? You're not sharing what you don't want to share, because there are some people that don't like to share, and that's understandable, but yet your spiritual family wants to help you and pray for you. So how hard is it to say, hey, just I've got something that's going on right now, and I'm kind of concerned about it. I want you to just keep me in your prayers. Isn't that easy? That should make you feel good that, hey, one of my spiritual family cared enough about me to ask. How many times have you been asked at work, somebody say, hey, will you pray for me, keep me in your prayer? Well, of course I will. Do you need to talk? Do you want to talk? Is everything okay? No, I just want you to keep me in your prayers. Why did they ask you? Normally, or probably what they saw is the Christian light shining in your life. And that directed them to you, and knowing that somebody that is someone who proclaims to be a Christian, and from the outskirts, or from the example that they are showing, lives the very life, and I want that person to pray for me. I want that person to take my problem before the throne of God. Isn't that what we want to do as a family of God? We want to pray for one another. And pray for all men. That's what Paul wrote. But anyway, God is our ear. He hears me when I cry out to Him. Verse 7. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy also upon me and answer me. And when you said, seek my face, my heart said to you, your face, Lord, will you seek? Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn away. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my help. Do not leave me nor forsake me, O God of my salvation. When my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take care of me. There are many times that when I have gone to talk to individuals about things that I knew that has happened in their life, and the first thing sometimes out of their mouth is, I don't know why God allowed this to happen to me. I don't know why God did this to me. Now, I've heard that on a few occasions too. Have you? But in fact, it's not God. It's just the circumstances of life that we face. But yet God, and I try to explain this to folks when they say that, don't be angry at God, because God's the very one that can help you get out of these situations that you're dealing with, that you're facing, the death of someone, or just whatever it is. God is the one that can help you. So don't be angry at the one who can hear you and help you. All right, let's look at the last section. Verses 11 through 14, I've got on the side of these verses that God is our guide. There are several times over the last several years, I've taken young people and young adults when I was at other places, and we would drive up to Chattanooga, and we would get on a whitewater raft, and we would raft the whitewater on the river. I forget that river's name. Ocoee River, that's it. The Ocoee River was used back in the Olympics when Atlanta held the Olympics. And they used that river for kayaking events and different water events like that. And so when the water was low, they went in and they put some man-made things in the river to make the currents, to make the waves a little bit more exciting. And I have taken the youth and young people, young adults, and we've gone there and we whitewater raft. And I think Nancy went on one time, and she swore she would never do it again. But I've been several times. Love it. It's great. There was one time that our guide said, "Who wants to ride the bull?" I said, "I will." Riding the bull is that you get on the front of that raft and you put your feet over and you hold on to the rope. You're riding the bull. He said, "Don't worry. If the wave hits you, it's just going to push you back into the boat." And that's exactly what happened. When they took a picture of me riding the bull, one of the pictures you saw my feet up in the air. But I would have never done this. I would never whitewater raft without the guide. Why is that? Because he knows the river. He knows his occupation. He knows how to keep the people safe and help in case danger occurs. Who would get in a raft and go down that river in Class 3 and Class 4 rapids without a guide? Some of you wouldn't get in, period. But some of you would. I'll take Coy. I think he'll have a good time with it.
Last time I got to know the Chuck, I said I'd never get in it again.
You got to know it really well, intimately, didn't you?
Yeah. I thought I was gone.
You thought you were gone. Oh, man. What happened? You get pushed over?
Well,
Was your wife riding with you and you felt something hit your back?
no, our boss at work, he's the one that probably been our guide, and he didn't know what.
He didn't know what he was doing.
We took a wrong place and it turned it upside down. And
No, you paid for a guide.
Yeah, I wish I'd have had a guide.
Did you have your life vest
Oh,
on?
yeah. Oh, yeah. But every time I turned up, you know, like you're supposed to in float, they'd rock. And I turned.
Well, it could be dangerous.
Broke a bone in my foot, and I thought I was.
No, I'm going to take you with me. We're going to get on one. Yeah, we're going to do that. But I would never get on that river without a guide. And even we have whitewater rafting companies around us. And they take people on the river here that's by us. But, you know, I still like the Ocoee a little bit better because of the type of rapids they have. But anyway, let's look at verse 11 through 14. God being our guide. Boy, say that quick. Teach me your way, O Lord, and teach me what? What does that say? A smooth path? Now, how many of you, besides me, would like to have a smooth life? No obstacles, no bumps in the road, no tough times. But is there anybody in here that has experienced that smooth life? No. We're all going to experience probably a rocky life because that's just how life is. But notice what David says. Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me into a smooth path. If I want to live a better life, an easier life, depend on God. Teach me your way. But here David says, because of my enemies. Now David had a lot of enemies, and a lot of the Psalms that he wrote deplicits David's not fear, but David having to deal with his enemies. Verse 12, do not deliver me to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and such breathe out violence. False witnesses against David? He was the king of Israel, was he not? But yet, even with David, he had to experience people that were talking evil about him. I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait on the Lord. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. Allow God to guide you. But how often do we get out of allowing God to direct us and we try to direct ourselves. What happens when we try to direct ourselves? The Bible says it's not in man to direct himself. What happens when man does that? We mess up, don't we? We have a tough time. We think we're doing the right thing, and that's what we teach our children. We have the awesome responsibility to teach our children about life. And we tell them, hey, you cannot direct your own life. Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to a person that has gone through this experience. They don't understand if you ain't gone through that. You don't know what you're talking about, Dad. What do you mean, don't do, listen to me. Listen to the voice of experience. Don't make the same excuses or the same mistakes that I did. So, in Psalm 27, we're seeing this psalm about how to overcome doubt, how to overcome disbelief, and even distrust. That's allowing God to lead us. Any comment or question about what we've read thus far? All right, let's go over to the New Testament, Galatians chapter 2. Here's another way to build up our faith, and it's found in verse 20. I have been crucified with Christ. Number one, realize that when we put Christ on in baptism, we crucified ourselves with Christ. We separated ourselves. We are dead to the world, but alive with Christ. So I have crucified myself with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. Now, think about that statement. What do you think Paul meant by the statement, it is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me? This thing must be going dead. What do you think that means?
He's letting the Lord live through him.
Okay. It's no longer I who live for myself. The Lord lives through me. And that's the idea of letting your light so shine before men that they may see your good works. All right? And the life which I now live in the flesh, that's this physical life, I live by how? By faith. Faith in what? In the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. You want to increase faith? You want to cast out doubt and disbelief and distrust? You don't want to have a calloused heart? Then trust in God. Another thing that the Bible teaches us and how faith is essential is that we stand with faith and we stand in the faith. And that's pointed out to us in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. 2 Corinthians chapter 5. I'm going to begin reading in verse 6 and go through verse 8. We are always confident, knowing that while we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. For we walk by faith and not by sight. We are confident, yes, well pleased, rather to be absent from the body than to be present and to be present with the Lord. In other words, there's a time coming when we're going to depart this shell of a body that God has given us. And at that point in time, we're going to be happy. We're going to be confident. We're going to be pleased not to be in this body anymore, but to be with the Lord. We walk by faith. That word walk there signifies life. So our life that we live is a life of faith. Now, if I honestly believe, and faith is believing, right? You say yeah? Okay. If I absolutely believe that nothing derogatory or nothing bad will happen to me, I just lost what I was going to ask. Because we're walking by faith, and we really have that faith that God is not going to allow anything bad to happen to me. Why is it that things do? I'm walking by faith. I'm living by faith. I trust God. But if by living by faith, believing that nothing bad is going to happen to me, then why does it?
Because Satan's in the world, and he has those that are trying to get us to make a mistake.
So by walking by faith means that when things don't in this path, I hit a bump or I hit a pothole and things are getting a little rough, living by faith is signifying that I trust in God to help me out of it. It's not that things won't go smooth all the time.
And I think it strengthens our faith once we get through those things.
It'll strengthen our faith, yeah. They've been doing some paving here in Irwin. And I tell you, there's some roads I'm so glad that they paved because, I would lose. If I had fake teeth, I believe my teeth would be shook out. That's how bad some of these roads are, and I'm so happy they've done it. I'm just upset that they quit. It's time to get back on this. But, the thing about these newly paved roads, it won't be long, and maybe even after this winter, that there's going to be some potholes in them. They won't stay smooth for long, will they? Our life is not all smooth sailing, but we know that God is there to help us. Now, we keep on keeping on. We keep on going because of our faith. Corey, would you read Hebrews 11:27? Jess, would you read 1 Timothy 6:12? Anthony, would you read 1 John 5:4? And then we'll look at some other ones here. All right. We endure, or in other words, we keep going on because of our faith. Hebrews 11:27.
By faith, he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible.
Hebrews chapter 11 is oftentimes quoted or subtitled as the chapter of faith. And it goes down through a lot of folks that we've already talked about, or that we know of. Verse 4, we talk about faith of Abel. What did Abel do? Well, he offered to God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain. Then we're told about Enoch. Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death because of his faith. We're told in verse 6 that without faith it's impossible to please God. By faith, Noah. Now this is a good one. By faith, Noah, being divinely warned of the things not yet seen, moved with godly fear in preparing the ark. By faith, verse 8, Abraham obeyed when he was called out to a place which he would receive an inheritance. By faith, he dwelt in the land promised in a foreign country. By faith, Sarah, verse 11, also received strength to conceive seed, a baby, in her old age. All these, verse 13, died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off. All right? They saw the promises that God has made, not being right there, but afar off. By faith, verse 17, Abraham, when he was tested, he offered up Isaac. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of his sons. By faith, Joseph, when he was dying, made mention of the departure of the children of Israel. By faith, Moses, verse 23. By faith, Moses, when he became of age, refused to be called the Pharaoh's daughter. By faith, he forsook Egypt, Moses did. By faith, he kept the Passover. But go back to verse 27. By faith, he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who was invisible. Who did he fear more, God or Pharaoh? God. And that's what helps a person's faith. All right? So we endure. We keep going on because of our faith. In 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 12, we fight by faith.
Fight the good fight of faith. Lay hold on eternal life, whereunto thou art also called, and hast professed a good profession before many witnesses.
Okay? So we fight the good fight of faith. Now, we fight against Satan. Now, he's our adversary. We fight against sin. But sometimes we fight against ourselves because we want to see things or we want to do things that is contrary to what God has said. And so sometimes man will try to find a loophole in God's Word in order to do it. So by that, not only do we fight Satan and sin and temptation, sometimes we fight against ourselves. We know what is the right thing to do, but sometimes we give in. And then when we win, when we overcome it, we have a victory. And that victory is because of our faith. 1 John 5:4.
For whatever is born of God overcomes the world. And this is the victory that has overcome the world, our faith.
Our faith. Chad, would you read Matthew chapter 14 and verse 31? Because here we see the account of Peter. And he is walking on the water to Christ. And what happened to Peter? Matthew 14:31.
And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand, caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt?
So what happened to Peter when he took his eyes off of Christ and he saw the troubles and the storm that was around him? What happened? He began to sink. And he cried out to the Lord, Lord, save me. Jesus did that very thing. So when we begin to doubt and we see it and we catch it, call out to Jesus. Pray to Him. Pray to God. Because He will help us through that tough time that we're facing. We're going to face it, but God is there to help us. Okay? We will stop here and begin next Sunday morning with number 4 in the introduction.